Good evening, Mercy Rodriguez, MPA 560, week 4. Today we are going to be presenting and talking about ethical analysis. So for my ethical dilemma, I chose the abuse of power in public administration. Um, my ethical dilemma that I chose to speak about is in public agencies, we have nepotism and favoritism that is pretty common. It's something, unfortunately, that I see happening more, in my opinion, more than it should in local agencies. So I will be discussing how city administrators and city officials can sometimes abuse their power, which, in my opinion, then can lead to unethical practices, not only that can harm the communities that they govern over, but also it affects the workflow of the agency just as a whole. So the problem, nepotism and favoritism. When a public official or a department head hires or promotes their close friends, their favorite employee, family members, it not only displays nepotism, but it leads to unethical behavior. And this is due to the favoritism that it causes overall. This type of unethical behavior and bad judgment usually will lead to bad decision making, and ultimately, that's not the best for the agency. Specifically with this type of abuse of power, it overlooks the most qualified candidates, and that can decrease job morale. And overall, it just leads to biased hiring practices. In using Sarah's framework for public administration, we can look at the steps that the city administrators should have followed or should be following, and then what happens when they fail to do so. So, my duty as the HR manager who approves the recruitment processes and overlooks all of the steps involved in the recruitment, it's my duty to uphold the rule of law, which for us in public administration and at my local agency, it's our civil service rules and our MOUs that apply to all of our bargaining units. And it promotes fairness. My job is to be transparent. And ultimately, I'm serving the public interest to the best of my ability, what the public interest is to the best of my ability. In order to hire or promote the most qualified employee, we go through a whole recruitment process and we only put forward those who qualify. I certify the whole process and I make sure it's run by the rules and to make sure we had no bias judging. And I'm also, and on top of that, or besides that, I'm also held to my own personal Christian values that I must stay true to at all times, whether it's in my job, serving as a resident, a community member, an employee, a public servant. But as a Christian, working as a public administrator, I'm expected to be fair, truthful, to uphold, morally correct values in how I live and in how I work. And part of my job serving my local agency is to come forward to my superiors, to my executive team, and be transparent with any wrongdoing that I am aware of, any kind of unfair treatment or practices I witnessed or I'm aware of. That's my job. And when we're hired, we take an oath to the city to serve our local agency to the best of our abilities at all times for our city and as public administrators. So, approaches. Um, I thought using the contractarian approach as administrators, I think we have a duty to the residents to serve as they pay our salaries. If we abuse the power that's given to us, they will no longer have trust in us. And I think with this approach, it serves as a contract between the two of us, implying that we both do the right thing. And if one does not, then maybe the other doesn't have to uphold their part of the contract. I'm going to be a law-abiding citizen, a community member, resident. I'm going to go by, city rules, therefore guidelines. You are to make sure they're upheld and you're doing your part of the bargain. So I thought that that approach might be more appealing to our public administrators in these sort of ethical dilemmas. Also, with the utilitarian approach, we can analyze the unethical use of power of nepotism and favoritism in hiring by remembering that we want the best outcome for the greatest number of people that it serves. And if we're making choices or hiring, those that favor just a few, it can be a disaster for the community, for our agency, and the employee who's not qualified, as well as the division who needs a more qualified candidate to do the job that the agency is trying to serve the best. So all around, it would be disastrous. So maybe a better solution might be, I thought about looking at the virtue approach. Um, this would maybe then expect our administrators to use fairness and honesty in the hiring process. We need to be able to act in a more leadership role and not involve in unethical behaviors. We need to always remember that who we serve and what they expect from us as public servants. And I think if we can remember to look at the big picture of how hiring decisions, not based on merit, will affect us in the end, and it can help us make better decisions overall in these areas and in all the areas. And in conclusion, in order to set the best example to others as public administrators, I think we need to lead by example. And we need to ensure that the officials who hired us to do the job they need us to do is being done with the highest ethical standards at all times. And that is my conclusion. Thank you very much.